All right, what's going on, everyone? This is the PG Era podcast right here on YouTube. We're here with our first episode of this brand new video podcast project that we have going here, which is essentially Kyle and I looking back on pretty much our childhood watching wrestling. We've discussed all of the details in our introduction video, so we don't need to ramble on about that stuff right now. You can check that out if you please. But for now, how are you doing, Kyle? What's going on?
Pretty good. Ready to talk about some SummerSlam 2008. Very exciting.
You sound very excited. So, we're just going to get into it. We're going to try to break away from our old format where we just go on and on for no reason. It's going to be a little more fast-paced, but also we're going to cover a lot in hopefully a short amount of time. So, without further ado, we're going to begin to look back at how the start of the PG era WWE began and how it, sort of came to be, or how it sort of led to our main topic of the day, like I said, which I've mentioned in the past, my very first pay-per-view in wrestling, and that was like my first summer. That summer was my first time watching, so this is a very interesting time for me personally. But to give us some context on how we got to this new era in history for WWE, I want to give some background. I saw here that on July 22nd, 2008, WWE put out a statement saying, quote, WWE's family programming has been deemed a PG television rating by their network distributors. World Wrestling Entertainment has been engaging families across all generations with their family programming for more than 2 decades and will continue to do so for years to come with all the action on Raw, SmackDown, and ECW. End quote. I found the line saying, that they've had family programming for more than 2 decades to be kind of interesting. When you look at this time period, the majority of their weekly shows were adult programming in that time span. Um, when you look at the change to TV 14, the Attitude Era in '97, all the way to this point in July of '98, of 2008. But I won't ramble. This change probably brought a lot of uncertainty for many fans. It kind of shows they can see across the 3 brands. Wouldn't you agree? That brought lots of uncertainty what we're going to
Oh,
see.
definitely. For sure. It's how people are. TV 14 is where WWE was at for a long time. They knew that the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era was ended. They were going into a new era and just a change, really.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, obviously, I can't speak to it because I joined at this time, but I imagine that if I had been watching up to that point, WWE, like, I would be wondering what the hell does PG mean? You would think back to the golden era where that was PG, the new generation era. But after all this time of being spoiled with such edgy programming, yeah, I can only imagine. But it was at this time, and even since as well, heavily speculated that a major reason the company decided to move forward with PG ratings was due to Linda McMahon's Senate campaign coming up in the time, like sort of after that. I believe it was 2010. I could be wrong on that. But I know that it was about that time. Many have felt that this was sort of a way to clean up the sort of world that she would have come from, and perhaps, with enough time of a clean product, Linda could deflect at least some of the criticisms of her background and all the moments she's been associated with for decades. If I remember correctly, around this time, I remember that there were still many attacks, regardless of her background and her political opponents would use examples of WWE's lows, specifically with her involved on camera. But are you buying this theory of why they decided to make this pivot with their programming?
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it. And I was also going to add a year prior to 2008 was also the big Chris Benoit situation, which I know definitely affected a lot of things. I think that definitely changed a lot of people's hearts and stuff, and within WWE to stick to more of a family-oriented thing. I mean, that put WWE in horrible publicity. They were all over the news. They were all over mainstream news. It was definitely a bad situation with all that. So I definitely think that the PG era was really a good thing for everybody. I mean, it was something that WWE wanted to do to make it more family oriented, like it was in the 80s and the early 90s. And, you know, did it work? Did it not work? I mean, we're going to find that out in this series, but I think it was a change that was needed. Um, now, now I'm talking about this pay-per-view though. I mean, if you wouldn't have known watching this pay-per-view that it was PG, if you wanted to have known it was PG, you would have probably guessed it was 14, because they really, at the early start of the PG era, they didn't make the full switch. I believe, like, once we got more into the 2010s and stuff, they did. But I think that it was something that was needed for sure. I mean, I think that it was a good idea. I think that your theory is right about Linda McMahon's political campaigns. I think that the Chris Benoit double murder suicide was definitely a big part of it. I think that there was a bunch of little things. Who knows how long it was in development for? I mean, they could have been thinking about this since 2000 for all we know. I mean, right when they bought WCW, they could have been thinking about it. They could have just thought about it, in, a week prior. We don't know, So it's all really speculation. What Vince, what the investors, what everybody involved in the company wanted to do, and so. But I definitely think what like the Linda, all that stuff definitely plays a part for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you brought all that up because there definitely was little things leading up to it. And, from what I see here in my research was that it seemed like, for the most part, viewers were starting to feel that WWE was slowly phasing into a PG rating months prior until this announcement in July. I believe they actually experimented with PG like once or twice in the months before. I guess there's no experiment with it. But you would see in the months prior a little less blood on programming, less adult language, and among other stuff, TV-14 aspects of their shows. So perhaps the many, and you can either comment below or tweet to us at PG Era Pod and your take on this. But for many that maybe saw this change coming, probably not much of a shocker. And it's kind of interesting to think about the opportunities that this move to PG would create, like business-wise. When you take into consideration sponsors and advertisers, this has to open up a lot of doors to a lot of interesting companies, especially ones that were more family-friendly that maybe wouldn't have been interested before, right? Like you see a lot more family programming. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think sponsors played a huge factor in it for sure. I mean, let's admit it, WWE really changed after they bought WCW. A lot of things changed. They got a lot more lazy. A lot of people said they got like a lot more chill, and they wanted a spark. Sponsors were leaving. WWF New York was gone, which was a big part of like a really big part of marketing. So that was gone at the time. I mean, stuff changed in the 2000s. So I just think the change was positive for the company. I mean, and I don't think it's as major as what as what a lot of people make it to be. It's one step down, PG's PG. It's still parental guidance, 14, people who are 14, 15, 16, they're still children, so it's like, what's the really big difference?
Yeah, there's children.
direct.
I don't mean to cut you off. Yeah, there are children going to an ice cream truck that's behind you. Continue.
Yeah, but it's directed more towards children for sure. I think that was the main goal. They want to say, okay, this is for the whole family to come. As
I hear.
That's funny, but yeah, I think that it definitely had a lot to do with the sponsors, as you were saying, for sure. I think that they attracted more young, youthful sponsors to promote the brand more. They're being able to be on more networks, different stuff like that. So yeah, definitely for sure. I just think it's a positive thing. I don't think there's many negatives to it, really. To be
Yeah, and definitely like I said, the like what you were saying, it opens like more doors towards. I mean, they can advertise their. I'm sure their. I don't have numbers on it, but I'm sure their merchandise probably went up. They're specifically like action figures, things more, you know, targeted towards kids. Because I know, Kyle, come on now, you got your toy room. Um, but but yeah, I'm sure the business went up in that regard. But as far as like live attendance, the average live attendance in excluding pay-per-views, at this time in August of '08 would be 5,310, and this is mostly live events. I think this considers weekly shows as well. This is down from August the prior year, which was 5352, which that was not a major downfall in average attendance. But when you look at like the live gate, which is overall what you're making per show, they went from in August of '07 to now about 191,000 in August of '08, which is a decent sign of their live gate going up. When you look at TV ratings, August 2008 Raw episodes, and I just want to focus on Raw because it's the main show, had an average rating of 3.25 compared to August of '07. Once again, not a huge downfall. But we've often heard, I don't know if you've heard this before, Kyle, but in the summer, it's traditionally a period where business is always down for whatever reason, when you would think usually go up. So comparing to other months of this year wouldn't be relevant in this case, but with TV ratings, um, I care more about the viewership numbers than ratings. I understand how many people watch more. So just to get a comparison to today, I mean, they're always averaging 0.79 million viewers in August of '08, which is, I mean, crazy to think about today, right? Like now it's a struggle to get to maintain like 2 million. What do you think about ratings? And I know that you have said in the past that you don't think that ratings is a huge like it doesn't matter as much. But what's your take on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, in 2008 compared to 2020, ratings were a much more bigger deal. I mean, YouTube wasn't a huge thing. There was no streaming services, not as much. They weren't as, big as they are now. I mean, I think 12, even like, 10 years ago, I mean, television ratings are important. I mean, believe me, television ratings, viewership, all that stuff is very, very important. You want people to watch, you want people to tune in live. That's why they have live programming. If they didn't want people to watch or tune in, they wouldn't have live programming. They would put it on YouTube in clips. That's the way we look at it. I mean, they want people to watch, obviously, but I think that in 2008, it was.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kyle. You just cut off here. Hold on. All right, we're back. We had some technical difficulties. I'm going to hand it back over to Kyle. Just talking about TV ratings. Continue.
But yeah, for sure. Like I was saying, I mean, in 2008, it was so important. Television ratings were so important. WWE, they were the top dog. I mean, that was their main goal after 2001, 2002. After they bought WCW, they wanted to be the top wrestling promotion. There's no doubt about that. You can sugarcoat all you want. That was their goal, and I think when they probably switched from 14 to PG, I don't think really ratings were too much of a concern. Maybe even they thought it would probably go up because more parents would allow children to watch wrestling. even though we all know back in like the 90s, 2000s, kids were watching it. I mean, it don't matter what the damn rating is. Kids are going to watch it just like kids are going to, play M-rated games, watch R-rated movies. Kids are going to watch wrestling. It's going to happen, but, it's still going to help. And, yeah, I don't think TV ratings was a huge deal then. I mean, I know that they obviously wanted them to be up and they wanted them to be high as possible, but I don't think that was a big me personally, I don't think that they were really too concerned about them going down once the PG era started. If anything, they really thought they were going to go up.
Right. And like I said, I mean, and you brought up a good point about streaming. You know, we're talking about YouTube and streaming. That also factors into today, and we don't talk about today, but just to put in perspective, this was a time where TV was more as far as you could get better ratings easily. And but that's it. That's it for all the background of the PG era. I think we covered the main stuff, but now it's time to get into our main event of this podcast for this debut episode. We're going to talk about the biggest blockbuster of the summer, SummerSlam 2008. This was my first time rewatching it since watching it, live on TV. So this show took place August 17th of that year at the Conseco Fieldhouse, which is now Bankers Life Fieldhouse, where the Pacers play in Indianapolis. That's a mouthful of Indiana. Anyway, attendance is reported at 15,997 and a pay-per-view buy rate of 477,000 about. And before we get into the main show, just want to mention for the heck of it, there was a dark match beforehand, which the Big Show would defeat Bam Neely. That's a that's a blast from the past name, Bam Neely. But we start the show intro package themed around the biggest blockbuster of the summer, similar to Party of the Summer, which most of us probably remember at this time. But any thoughts on the opening package for the show? I mean, it feels like most of the time was spent towards the main event, Undertaker and Edge. But what did you think about the opening package, talking about all the movies?
Yeah, when I was watching the package, that's the only match I saw actually previewed, in a more of an entirety. And when I was watching the package, I really thought they were going to say it was like in Hollywood. It had like that Hollywood vibe to it. I really liked the ramp, how they had the I really enjoyed that. It felt like Los Angeles, Hollywood, Staples Center like thing. So I was kind of surprised when they said it was in Indiana. So, but it's pretty cool. It was a fun package. It's typical SummerSlam. I mean, it's what SummerSlam has been. It's what SummerSlam's always going to be. And it definitely got me hyped watching it this morning. I actually just watched it this morning. So fresh in my mind. It was even back then. I don't know if I watched it back then, to be fair. I didn't really watch many pay-per-views live back in 2008, 2009. I mean, I probably watched it honestly on DVD. I used to buy the DVDs, and but thank God for the WWE Network in 2020 that we're able to go back and watch all these. But the package was great. The arena was awesome. It was jam-packed. Like you said, nearly 16,000. Really loved the stage setup. That was a big thing that I loved back in the day, how they would have customizable stages for every single pay-per-view. It would feel different, and I really enjoyed it. So might as well not waste any time. Let's get right into this pay-per-view.
To it. The opener for this pay-per-view was Jeff Hardy versus MVP. And, man, I got to tell you, starting the show with Hardy's theme, No More Words, that brought me back instantly. Gave me chills, as did the opening introductions from JR, Lawler, Michael Cole, going through everything. But just a very energetic and nostalgic thing for myself. Hardy was so hot and over at this time, the crowd. This was a sort of fast-paced opener, and I liked it, especially in the spot of the card. They started off strong, fast-paced match, um, but MVP would pick up win a little after 10 minutes of a match after the United States champion, Shelton Benjamin, would come up and distract Hardy. Hardy dove off the ropes on the Benjamin, would go up for the top rope, missed the swanton bomb. MVP hit running drop kick. I'm not sure what it was called. Taz called it a drive-by kick on commentary. But regardless, and something we're going to do when we go match by match. Not every match, it depends. But for this one, we'll look at the old Observer ratings and just kind of see if we agree. Obviously, it depends on the match. But in this case, in the Observer, Meltzer would give this a 3-star rating. What do you think about that and overall the match? You don't have to give a rating, just overall talk about how you
Yeah, that's where I was at. I was at 3 stars too. I mean, it's just to me, it's just an average opener. I mean, it was between two of WWE's probably mid card talents at the time. Jeff Hardy had been back, I believe, a couple years at the time. I think he came back in like 06, 07. So he just came back. He was kind of in the WWE title picture, not really, facing Edge. I don't know if he was fully involved in it, but here he was just facing MVP, non-title, no championships involved. So I think it was a fun little opener. I think MVP was a really, really good heel at the time. I think Jeff Hardy was still great at putting over talent, at that time, even though he was still kind of young in his career. I mean, we're talking 12 years ago, Jeff Hardy. I mean, he wasn't, in his past, but just a fun opener. I mean, to see the United States champion Shelton Benjamin come out was cool. You for sure wish there was a U.S. championship match on the card, but for the most part, fun little match. Like pretty much you covered it. I mean, it was a fun opener, just like SummerSlam should be. Energetic, fan favorite, and Jeff Hardy, probably the most popular superstar on the roster at that time, arguably. I mean, and MVP, one of the most despised heels. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. And for the heel to get the win, nothing wrong there. Very solid opener. I think 3 stars is respectable.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like we were talking about, super over at this time. And spoiler alert, we will see that come into full effect a few months later at the end of the year. But probably come to that at some point. But next, we've got Maria backstage interviewing Santino and Beth Phoenix in a fun promo from Santino, as always. They're, of course, looking to win the intergender tag team match, which is for the Intercontinental and Women's title at the same time. This is next, and as Glamorella take on Women's Champion James, and boom, 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 Kofi Kingston, who was the IC champ at this time, who beat Le Champion, Chris Jericho, for the title at Night of Champions, I believe. And that was his first match since moving from ECW. Anyway, this match is the only tag match on the card, and it's for the women's and a mid-card title. This match goes 5:39, where Beth Phoenix and Morella get the win after Phoenix hits Mickie James with the Glam Slam. I thought this was a fun, quick tag match. Afterward, Beth puts Santino on her shoulders. Santino holding both titles, just classic stuff. Since this was a quick match, and this is two big titles. I mean, the women's title and Intercontinental changing hands in 5 minutes? I said something like that. Meltzer will give this 1 3/4 stars. What do you think about this match?
Yeah, that's where I was at too. Maybe about 2 stars. This, you can say it was, supposed to be more of a gimmick, funny type match. this was Kofi Kingston's first championship in WWE. It was his first year. So it was kind of interesting to spend the first SummerSlam doing this, but nobody knew the star he would turn out to be. Santino was more of a comedy character pretty much his entire career. And then obviously, as we will talk about more in this whole series, is obviously the women's division wasn't what it is now. And we will slowly but surely get better and talk about that and realize how much it did improve compared to this. I mean, to put two, major championships at the time, just thrown together in a clunky tag team match, it's definitely not a SummerSlam feel to it. I would say this is probably the least memorable match of the card, my least favorite. And it kind of sucks because I like Mickey James a lot. And I like Kofi Kingston a lot. But, it's just, I guess it's a comedy relief match, even though but it shouldn't be if there's two, very major championships on the line. It's like we only got one mid-card title match on this card. We got 3 world title matches, but only one mid-card title, and it's the Intercontinental title, which is kind of not saying that this was completely disrespectful to anybody, but it just, could have been better, I guess. It definitely shows that the Intercontinental title was not even taken seriously in 2008. I mean, Chris Jericho just had the title for crying out loud, So, I mean, but it's no disrespect to anybody involved in the match. It's just, I think, poor booking, but at the same time, am I taking it a little bit too seriously? I guess I am because it was 2 titles on the line. If it was a non-title, tag team match, go at it, whatever. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, throughout this series, the Intercontinental title and women's title gets treated a little bit more better. We'll see.
Absolutely. And next, we get to one of my favorite parts of the show. It's a segment, in-ring segment, just outstanding stuff here with Shawn Michaels coming out to the ring with his wife after weeks of speculation, in storyline that Michaels was going to announce his retirement. They show clips of Jericho elbowing him like in the face, in the eye, at the Great American Bash, the previous pay-per-view. And in the same package, Shawn is hyping a huge announcement, which we'll see here. Michaels comes out and, talking about how the doctors were recommending that he walk away, but it's up to him. Michaels says it's time for him to take the advice and do so. He's talking about his family and, really building up the emotions of the crowd. And then here comes 2008 Chris Jericho interrupting his suit, which is just classic from this time. Jericho says he's not letting HBK walk away. So he admits to everyone that Jericho was the one who single-handedly ended his career, and he wants to take credit for it. Michael says he'll admit that, but he wants Jericho to admit to his family that he'll never be Shawn Michaels. Michaels and his wife start to leave. Jericho pulls Michaels in, goes to punch him. Michaels ducks, and the punch lands square in his wife's face. Michaels drops down, is checking on her, and is just concerned and pissed at once. Jericho leaves, almost showing signs of sympathy and remorse, but I remember the segment vividly, like it was yesterday. This was just the shock factor of Jericho accidentally punching Shawn's wife in the face. It's just an unbelievably great way to build to their match. I believe that the Unforgiven. I don't.
Armageddon, Unforgiven, something.
No Mercy, I think.
No Mercy.
Either way, towards their next match. But just a great way, wouldn't you say, to hype this?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it 100%. I think this, like you said, was typical heel Jericho at its finest. I loved 2008, 2009, even 2010. Jericho was so much fun. The Shawn Michaels retirement tease was maybe even foreshadowing, what happened in a couple of years. I mean, he said so many things. He mentioned how he retired Ric Flair. He mentioned so many different things. It was so much fun seeing him come out and, be so passionate. And then for Jericho to come out and just spoil the party. Or, well, not party, but to spoil the retirement. It was crazy. It's like, wow. And then, the words exchanged from Jericho felt real. And then for him to punch Shawn's wife square in the jaw, how about ushering you into the PG era right there? That's like, there's not going to be much change, but that was definitely insane, and it was fun. I mean, I think that, it gets me excited because I know how good this feud ends up being, and I know how much Shawn Michaels really, you know, pushed Jericho to his best, and vice versa. These two guys, they wrestled, I believe it was WrestleMania 17 was their first, or 19? 19.
19, yeah.
In 2003, these two had a fantastic match. We all know about that, or we should, 5 years prior. And now these two in completely different stages of their career. Jericho, arguably in 2008, was in the prime of his career, or, about to go into the prime of his career as one of the best heels in the company. Shawn Michaels was towards the end of his career once again, and we knew that, and we saw that, and I love this segment. I mean, as much as I would have loved to see a Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels SummerSlam battle, it waited, but I think that, for being a pay-per-view and having an excellent segment like this is actually rare nowadays, and even rare back then. So it's really, really cool. It's I know people say, oh, it looks like an episode of Raw, promos and stuff like that, but at the same time, it's like, it's SummerSlam, it gets you hyped, it's like, we're going to have more pay-per-views and we're going to have even more exciting stuff happening just like this. So 100% gold. I mean, if it was a match, 5 stars, so much fun for sure. I mean, I think it built Jericho absolute heat, and it made Shawn Michaels even more of a babyface. I think it really, I think this is a very underrated feud, or not really underrated, but more of a forgotten one. When you talk about Jericho's best feud, Shawn Michaels isn't really at the top of the list, or vice versa. So for sure, so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. And, we go from, I agree with everything you were saying there. Just great stuff. And we go from one of the best parts of the show to probably the worst part of the show. Next, we go to a match from the ECW brand. Gresham announces, very sadly, it's time for the ECW main event, which I thought was just hilariously sad. Gresham is, of course, referring to the ECW title match where Mark Henry would defend against Matt Hardy. At this time, I didn't really watch ECW because it came on like the time slot where WWE Backstage is on, I believe, right now, like 11 p.m. That's a school night, brother. All I remember is that, this time change, this time, Mark Henry was booked as an absolute monster heel. He was tearing it up on the ECW brand during this era. The match, well, that would be less than a minute. I believe it was like half a minute. And we're back. Once again, technical difficulties. First show, we're really trying to figure out this whole format video. But in case this cut out, as Kyle was telling me that, I was talking about the end of the match here, where Tony Atlas pulls Hardy out of the ring. Hardy wins by DQ. The crowd is, noticeably frustrated by this. But out comes Jeff Hardy, make the save. The crowd is all into this Hardy Boys reunion. But damn, what a horrible look for ECW here. First, you get the ECW main event announced, and then this shit happens. I just really feel I feel the most towards Todd Grisham and Matt Striker, who have had to sit through this entire show just for that match. What did you think about this match?
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, Matt Hardy was awesome at the time. I mean, he was in ECW, obviously, like you said, and Mark Henry was a force. His dominance was insane, and there's really a lot I want to talk about this. I won't go, for it all, but we're talking PG era. In 2006, WWE revived ECW, and then 2 years later they bring back the PG era. I just think that really sucks because
ECW never is going to work in a PG era. It's just not. I mean, we're talking about stuff that was rated MA back in the day. I mean, there's no way that it's going to work in the PG era. I mean, there's no way they're going to ever treat the ECW championship as a world title, even though they kind of did. I mean, they said, we have 3 world championship matches. This is the main event of ECW, you know, stuff like that. I mean, I even remember, I think I remember watching live when The Undertaker won the Royal Rumble in 2007, and Bobby Lashley was the ECW champion in the ring. It was actually a consideration for Undertaker to face at WrestleMania. I mean, that's crazy. You know, the fact that Undertaker actually could have picked Bobby Lashley to face at WrestleMania for the ECW championship. I mean, that's insane to think about. But it's kind of sad. I mean, they had great talent there, no doubt about it. They didn't have scrubs. They had, you know, Mark Henry and Matt Hardy. I mean, this is 2 great talents. You know, one's a future Hall of Famer, and the other's already in the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, both former world champions. Of course, Matt Hardy eventually would win the ECW championship. And then, of course, Mark Henry is a former world heavyweight champion, ECW champion. I mean, like I said, Hall of Famer. Yeah, maybe if they would have made this match go 15, 20 minutes and had a decent bout, didn't get the manager involved, maybe, you know, we wouldn't be talking shit about it right now. But they didn't. You know, simply put it, they didn't. They had outside interference. They had the match, you know, stopped abruptly. I mean, I don't know how long you said it was, but I mean, I believe it was what, 2-3 minutes? Yeah, Jeff Hardy.
It was 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Yeah, I don't even think this match deserved to even get a star rating. So I mean,
yeah.
But you know, yeah, Jeff Hardy came out and made the save. But luckily enough, if I'm not mistaken, there was better matches to come for the ECW brand. But you know, to do it at SummerSlam, you know, to have drop a deuce like this, that's not good for ratings at all. That's not good for ECW. Certainly not good for Matt Hardy or Mark Henry at the time, but they do end up redeeming themselves, to be fair. But yeah, not a, you know, this seems more like a match that you would see on an episode of ECW between 2 undercard guys, not 2 of your main eventers. You know, it's just disappointing. Nothing we can really do about it, but I mean, hopefully, and we do know that there's more.
All right. Well, you just cut out there at the end. I'm still recording though. But hopefully it fixes itself while I go here. Yeah, like you said, this was just a poor part in the show. Definitely, I mean, it's got to be the worst part. But next up here, we've got the World Heavyweight Championship on the line between. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just checking. You look like you're leaning in. You're giving the ear, brother. But the World Heavyweight Championship's on the line. CM Punk defending against Shawn lately. You know, and normally I'm not going to bring up like the highlight reel they play before, or the video package they play before matches. There's just one part I wanted to bring up. I don't know if this was a thing for you, but there were 2 just random hilarious censors that the network has in the highlight beforehand that's showing for CM Punk. The first one comes up when he says, "My name is CM," and then it's just nothing. There's nothing. It's just CM. And then he says, "Some call me," and it just, there's nothing. And I assume they said Fluke, the champion. But anyway, I just thought that was funny. This match comes after JBL pinned Punk in a tag team match with Jericho as JBL's partner. And I believe the stipulation was that if JBL or Jericho pinned Punk, they would challenge him at SummerSlam for the title. Anyways, they go almost 12 minutes here. Punk picks up the victory, retaining his title after ducking JBL's clothesline from hell and scooping him up to hit the GTS. I thought it was a decently laid out match. It's just kind of a classic feel to it. You got the young underdog, babyface champion Punk working from underneath against the veteran, bigger, stronger, richer, cockier heel JBL. And while their styles were different in the ring, I thought it was a good clash of styles here. Styles clash. Sometimes, when we see that doesn't work out, sometimes we see different styles that doesn't work out. But this is an example I think worked out all right, and it made sense to me in getting Punk over as champ. Meltzer says 3.25 stars. Do you agree with that? What did you think about this match and how it's laid out? All right, we're back again. More technical difficulties. But who's watching anyway? Kyle, this was the part where I was sending it over to you. We were both hilariously frozen. But throw it over to you. What do you think about this world title match?
Yeah, like you said, CM Punk versus JBL. First things first, I do want to talk about this SummerSlam was actually booked kind of in reverse. The 4 major stars in the company at the time, Edge, Undertaker, John Cena, Batista, were all not battling for World Championship. But it was more or less 4 guys that, the World Heavyweight title and the WWE Championship match were actually more or less serving as mid-card title matches as opposed to the 2 main events. Because you saw, unlike challengers at the time, JBL hadn't really been involved in the world title scene for a couple of years. And same situation with the Great Khali and Triple H, which is the match we're going to talk about next. Khali wasn't necessarily a top-notch main eventer at the time, or at least in a lot of people's eyes. Maybe WWE were pushing him, but obviously fans weren't. But that's just something I really wanted to touch on. It was very interesting that, the world title match and the WWE title match were more or less afterthoughts. Opposed to the 2 big main events that we had at this card. Nonetheless, though, CM Punk and JBL was a very, very solid bout between 2 very, very strong superstars at the time. We all know about how CM Punk won this championship. Of course, the Money in the Bank, he cashed in on Edge after being attacked by Batista, and the World Heavyweight Championship would then switch over from SmackDown to Raw. And now, CM Punk, who was very, very vocal, is very, very vocal in his DVD about how this World Championship reign was not really viewed as him being the guy. He was simply just a filler champion. He felt like he was just he said the first world title reign really didn't go well. And the following year, he was back in the Money in the Bank ladder match. But, enough talk about the background about CM Punk. Let's talk about the actual match. I think it was a very, very solid World Heavyweight Championship match. Now, let me rephrase that. I think it was a solid championship match. I think if this was a U.S. title match or an Intercontinental title match, 100% great, 4.5 stars, maybe 4. Being a world title match, it just didn't have that feel, and I don't take that away from CM Punk. I really don't. Now, we know CM Punk ended up improving immensely overall in his career. I don't think 2008 CM Punk was anything like 2011 CM Punk, but I definitely think that he still had so much room to grow. He was really only about a year removed probably from ECW, if not less. And I think that he had so much room to grow. Maybe he was given the World Heavyweight Championship too soon. I don't know. JBL, we all know, was a very well-respected heel at the time. He was about 3 years removed from a WWE Championship reign. He had held other championships in between, but like you said, this was a typical David versus Goliath-like match. Big heel versus a very, very well-liked, well-received babyface. But I never really bought CM Punk's world title reign in 2008. I feel like it was kind of testing the waters. Like, okay, let's give this young and rising superstar the Money in the Bank. Let's have him cash in on Edge. Let's see what he can do with the title. But to be fair, they didn't actually, give him great opportunities. They didn't put him against The Undertaker. They didn't put him against Batista, John Cena. They put him against JBL, and no disrespect to JBL, none at all. But JBL wasn't exactly on the level of The Undertaker, of Jeff Hardy, of, these type of Edge, of John Cena, of Batista at the time. JBL was past his, top heel prime. You're looking at Chris Jericho as being that, which is a foreshadowing moment of what will happen in a couple months with CM Punk. But you know, it's whatever. You know, is what it is. It was a good match, like you said. It was a very nice match. So let's move on to the WWE Championship match now.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, I agree with that. And we move on to probably the title here that means more at this time. At least a little bit. But we still got a weird kind of mix here of match. We got champion Triple H, who is working Tuesday's brother at this time, defending against Mark Covey. And, this is a company that when he was booked as an unstoppable monster. And, I gotta say, at this time, he was damn scary. And I wanted anyone to take him in. As we said in the last one, David versus Goliath style. This is, of course, for the more comedic relief comedy, which fans would come to know. And, hell, they may make it on the probably kiss cam and switch the son of a gun. But anyways, this match is a little different. I mean, the fact that for once we're seeing Triple H essentially the underdog working from underneath. You don't really see that often. And, he was often not really paired with people in feuds where they're bigger than him. Obviously, this is a different kind of man. They went 10 minutes about with, Kyle was dominating through most of it, but Hunter would come out in the victor after hitting the pedigree, just after escaping the Kali Death Grip, I believe it was called. That was a big thing at the time. And I thought it was a decent match. More than anything, a great in-ring story with Triple H fighting off this monster. It beat my expectations. It still wasn't the best title match. Meltzer gave it 1.5 stars. What do you think about this match and how it turned out?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, like I've said on the prior one, I feel like the WWE title and the World Heavyweight title were both kind of afterthought. But Greg Khali was very, very well established at this time. You're right. I mean, he had already won a World Heavyweight Championship. He had already had a feud with The Undertaker. And I don't know, was this prior to the John Cena feud or after it? I know he had a feud with Cena for a little bit. I don't know if it might have been around the time. But anyways, yeah, it was weird. Also, excuse my background information here, but how long had Triple H had the WWE title for at the time? Had he just won the championship?
I think he won it. I don't know if he won it at Mania, but I know that there was the title match with him, Orton and Cena.
I was going to say, not to go off track, but where is Randy Orton? He's not featured on this pay-per-view. Where was he at around this time?
Yeah, I have no clue.
Injured. We'll figure all that out, guys. We're just, like I said, or like we've been saying, 2008 was 12 years ago. We don't exactly remember everything that happened in 2008. We try to keep as much knowledge as possible, who had the championship for how long, stuff like that. But nonetheless, let me get back to the match. I had a couple background questions there, just so I know. But yeah, regardless, Triple H was a WWE champion on SmackDown, which I guess the titles had just swapped, like I was saying about the Punk going to Raw. But this was strange at SummerSlam. It really was. I just really wish Triple H, he deserved a better SummerSlam match, for sure. No disrespect to Greg Khali. I'm not trying to disrespect any of the challengers or anybody on this pay-per-view. I feel like everybody's great talents. If Greg Khali, he deserved to be in the WWE Championship match for sure. He had proven himself. He had, established himself as this big giant at the time. He was a good heel. But you're right. Triple H came in as an underdog. He overcame the odds and he won. He retained. So, it was a lot of fun for sure. It was a decent match. I wouldn't have necessarily given it a 1.5 stars. I think it was solid. How Khali got him into like the vice grip lock, whatever it was called at the time, and then he, got out of it and was able to, hit him with the pedigree and do all that fun stuff and defeat the Great Khali. So, yeah, let's get into the two main events now. Championship matches are out of the way. They were both, I mean, can you say fell short of expectations? How much expectation did the two championship matches really have? I mean, did you expect Colleen Triple H to put on a 5-star match at the time? Did people really expect anything out of Great Khali at the time? But let's get into the two big main events. First, we got John Cena and Batista, and I guess I can start this one off since I'm already talking. But we know about John Cena and Batista. We know about these two guys. In 2008, these two were both at the top of their class. They were both multiple-time WWE champions, multiple-time World Heavyweight champions. They had feuded with Undertaker, Edge, Randy Orton, everybody that you could imagine. John Cena and Batista have feuded with each other since they had won their World Championships in 2005. This was the first time they had ever feuded with each other, and that was such a big deal. Such a big deal because these were the top guys. Batista ran SmackDown for so many years. John Cena ran Raw for so many years. And these two guys going at it was just absolutely amazing at the time. I remember it full as day. John Cena and Batista, because they both won their first world title at WrestleMania 21. And talk about the match. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was back and forth, Batista bombs, FUs, submission holds, and now, of course, one of the big things was in this match was the whole neck injury from John Cena. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the neck injury wasn't instant. I believe that on the following night on Raw, John Cena was actually placed in the championship scramble match at the next pay-per-view, but removed a couple of days later. I may have the days wrong, but I do remember that he was placed in the championship scramble, then removed to have the surgery and to miss some time. But it was believed that the neck injury was caused in this match. If I'm not mistaken, it was when John Cena dived off the top rope and took the Batista bomb. That was the first Batista bomb he took. And then, of course, the second one he took was for the victory. That Batista one, which I actually saw as a shocker because we all know that John Cena very, very rarely loses big pay-per-view matches, especially in this time of his career. I'm not talking now, but it was a nice win for Batista nonetheless, injuries aside, and it was good. It was just two of the great talents that we ever saw in the industry going at it at the time. And really surprisingly, neither one of these guys were really in WWE that long at the time. 2005 was when they really hit their peak, and then, well, especially John Cena. I think Batista had actually left in 2010, which was actually crazy how quick Batista's career flew by. He had left in 2010, but John Cena was really just kind of in his prime at the time. So this was, I think, if you guys are thinking, this SummerSlam was kind of mediocre, what we've been talking about, I think this match really saved it. I think this match was everything that they expected. It actually came in at a rather short time. I think it was about 14, 15 minutes. So I'm not, if my memory serves me right, but yeah, it was a lot of fun though. I mean, I can't say that enough. I mean, if it was for a WWE Championship or World Heavyweight Championship, I think it would have even been better. Or not better, but it would have felt like, hey, Batista's win really would have, been viewed as stronger. But nonetheless, I mean, I don't even know the rating on this match, but if I had to go at one, I would give this a very, 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 very respectable 4.5. So, Joe, I'll let you talk about this match some. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Somehow the first time. Including the one that I agree is one of, if not the funniest non-scripted moment ever at Royal Rumble 5. This has to do with them, being on different shows, like you said, different times. And now Batista's drafted to Raw, so this is the money match we can see. And we should also note this feud kind of evolves from being earlier in the year, summer. But yeah, they go about 14 minutes here. Like you said, that injury happens. But yeah, two of the biggest stars in the company, at least the newer stars from that generation, I'd say, going out first night It was fun to watch. Yeah, 4.5. Holy smokes! I mean, it was really good. I mean, I don't disagree necessarily, but it was very well put together. Um, I think more than anything, it's one of those matches where they could do pretty much no wrong, where the crowd's just into it to begin with. You know, everything they do is going to get a reaction. And yeah, like you said, the neck injury happens in this match on the first piece of on the top row, giving Cena a herniated disc, which would put him out of action until Survivor Series, where he would eventually face world champion Jericho in his hometown of Boston. But at this time, Cena was coming back from injuries like super quickly. It seems with the Rumble earlier that year, like recovering his past injury super quick. But overall, like I think it was a very, just like I said, they could do no wrong out there. The crowd's into everything. It was energetic for sure. Next though, we got the match that I.
And what was the Cena Batista match given star rating? Did you say?
Yeah, let's point that out. That was given 3 3/4 stars.
Yeah, that's respectable. I don't know why. I mean, maybe the length I think hurt it a little bit. I think it could have been a little bit longer, but I mean, it was definitely great when a lot of near falls, traded finishers, the submission keys, maybe a world title, put towards that match. But at the time, that wasn't the way the characters had went. I think Batista had just gotten done feuding with Shawn Michaels for a little bit, and Cena, if I'm not mistaken, he was in the WWE title picture for a bit, and then I think he had a brief feud with JBL. Then it kind of just happened. So, but yeah, nonetheless, you can move on. We're talking about Edge and Undertaker now, the main event.
And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This was the one of the night, the match of the night. And, it's kind of weird. We've gone from, as we mentioned earlier, all these world title matches, suddenly 2 ones. 2 matches that maybe didn't need it. This is definitely one. This was a absolute classic feud this year. And this was the time where I thought Undertaker was just the coolest. And I absolutely hated Edge at this time. This whole match comes about when SmackDown general manager Vicky Guerrero, who's in storyline, of course, married to Edge, would put her husband in this match, bring back Taker. I guess because of their failing marriage, you're going to face the Undertaker, brother. But it was earlier this year, they had their Mania match. And then they had, I believe, afterwards, a crazy match at Backlash. It's been a bit since I've seen that one, but I just remember it was crazy good, where many thought that was the end of it. Like, for real. People thought then that he was going to be out of action, including Edge and storyline, which would help build to this. And I've actually heard exact quotes or anything, but I remember hearing on podcasts before talking about how going into this, he was wondering how a Hell in a Cell match would work with a PG rating. But I must say, they made it work. And honestly, I was watching this, it did not feel PG whatsoever. It was super violent. So many headshots with chairs and stuff. And I had to look that up. I thought that was done at this time. That was until 2010 they banned headshots, which was just a ton. But this is one of my favorite cell matches to think back on. Of course, Taker gets the win just under 27 minutes. So they go a while here. Taker chokeslams Edge off the top rope, the 2 stacked tables, which was a great spot. Taker hits the spear on Edge, a headshot with a camera, and then does the concerto, which makes me cringe every time I see it. And scoops him up for tombstone. That's it. And then, of course, after the match, Taker comes back in, sees that Edge is still moving, sets up the ladder. It's a very long spot when you think about it. He comes back in and sets up all this stuff. Ladder, brings another ladder in, and climbs it up before chokeslamming him through the ring. Then he summons huge flames up. Great visual. They absolutely treated each other. Sort of says that it's worth 4.5 stars, which is what you gave for the previous match. He was an absolute barn burner. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, this was excellent. This feud was excellent. I mean, this is a feud that dated back to February. So the fact that this feud lasted a great 6 months is just insane. I mean, I'll go over the feud a bit here. February, Undertaker wins the Elimination Chamber match. Gets the opportunity to face Edge at WrestleMania. Keeps the streak alive at Mania. You see a bunch of great stuff happen after that. The Hell's Gate finisher is used, I believe it was at Backlash, where he retained against Edge once more. Well, he took the title from Edge at Mania, then he retained against him at Backlash using the Hell's Gate, which Vicky Guerrero ended up banning. And she strips the Undertaker of the World Heavyweight Championship. And I believe they faced each other 2 more times back-to-back pay-per-view. Yes. And one was by count-out, I believe. I forget the match. Maybe somebody got themselves intentionally counted out, Edge or whatever. And then, of course, he defeated the Undertaker. And then Undertaker returned, and boom, we had a great Hell in a Cell match to just cap off this amazing feud. Undertaker wins the match. Now, it's unfortunate it wasn't for the World Heavyweight title. Of course, we talked about that earlier. CM Punk ended up getting it, but just a fantastic match. It's just absolutely stunning. Like you said, really, a lot of people thought that might have been it for The Undertaker. Even in 2008, he was up there in age at the time. And, I mean, it wasn't it by no stretch of the imagination. He could still go. I mean, even Edge was fantastic. I mean, we saw him in the video package beat the living hell out of Mick Foley. I mean, that was a great, way to pump it up. Great way to get excited. Hell in a Cell, just, boom, what a way to kick off the PG era. Let's have a Hell in a Cell match main event. That is awesome. Yeah, I think this is one of the greatest main events in SummerSlam history. I'm going to say that, for, 30-some SummerSlams. That it has a lot of great company, but, this was excellent. SummerSlam or WrestleMania had the same main event that year, the same 2 superstars main evented, and that's something you don't see very often. I often compare this match of The Undertaker and Edge. Honestly, I compare this match a lot to the Brock Lesnar Undertaker Hell in a Cell match that happened a few years back. I feel like even though it was in 2 different eras of Undertaker's career, I feel like they were both bounce back matches for Undertaker after being out for a long period of time. The ending was also very, very cool of this match, how he put Edge through the ring, sent him to hell. I just think that is just very cool. Like, he defeats him, and then Undertaker leaves, but then he looks back and sees Edge moving, and then puts him in the middle of the ring there and sends him directly to hell. You see the fire, and it's a great way to cap off SummerSlam. I mean, for being not to say it was mediocre, but I'm going to say it was mediocre. I mean, for being a fairly mediocre SummerSlam throughout the first half with no really, insane moments. After the Shawn Michaels segment, once that kicked it off. I mean, that was a great segment. A couple of very, very solid world title matches. Solid, not great, not bad, solid. And then 2 very, very good main events. I mean, excellent main events. So, putting this SummerSlam, if I had to define it in a word, I would say, historical for the reasons that it was the first pay-per-view of the PG era, but at the same time, nostalgic. You saw so many great superstars go at it. You saw so much foreshadowing here. I mean, you're eventually going to see these superstars that are in different feuds clash against each other in even better feuds going forward. Hint, Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. Hint, Triple H and John Cena. So you're going to see so much good stuff happen.
Yeah, definitely. And, you had brought up you had said use the word mediocre. I wanted to get to that, end the show here, talk about, we could go, when we come to the show, and give just sort of a quick rating, like, do you give it thumbs up, thumbs down, 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs down, something like that. Where would you put that on that scale, from 2 thumbs up or to 2 thumbs down?
I would give it about, I mean, I would recommend it for sure. I would definitely recommend it. I would probably give it about a thumbs up. I would give it maybe like a B. And if I'm looking at all SummerSlams in history, I would say it fits right in the middle of the pack, maybe even towards the front. Strictly, like I said, this main event was perhaps one of the greatest in SummerSlam history. I really think that. I think that it was classic. I think that it goes down in history. I honestly think Edge and Undertaker, that their feud was just great. I mean, I think that that might be both, or it's up there for both of the superstars' best feuds of their career. So, John Cena, Batista, just their first time ever clashing. Just then at the same time, there was so many blemishes on this pay-per-view. That's why it does get drugged down to like a B plus kind of. But nonetheless, it was great. I mean, I think that was a great pay-per-view with some good matches, with some mediocre matches, and with some outstanding matches.
Yeah, definitely. I agree on the thumbs up. Just giving it one because, yeah, I think that the last 2 matches in particular saved this for maybe a thumbs down. But overall, it was fun. And like you said, I recommend it. It's just fun to look back on. And we'll probably be saying that a lot. But, when we rate it, we're going to try to put it as if we're in that zone, in that era, and just be like, okay, how good is this show? Not just like for looking back reasons. Just, yeah, I would agree. The last 2 matches definitely probably saved it from a poor rating. But yeah, just classic stuff. And we're looking forward to covering more classic stuff. It's a transition, folks. More classic stuff in the future. We don't know right now what we're going to be covering, I believe, next week, if we're able to do it. We said in our intro video that we would have posted last Thursday, whenever this is posted. But we're definitely going to try to keep a consistent schedule. It just varies. Our schedules vary. But we're going to try to do this every Thursday and post these. Right now, we don't know what we're going to cover. Kyle and I will probably talk about it on our own, maybe announce it on our Twitter at PGR. But as always, you can always tweet us there. Comment below what you want us to cover. We're willing to go all over the place. We're willing to go in order from this show on. But if there's anyone out there that wants to hear any thoughts on a specific show, let us know. We'll at least take it into consideration. We won't just say no right away. But as Kyle shows off his ink, it is time for us to go